When someone wants to connect to God, they may travel to the mountains of Tibet, or the temples of India, or the deserts of New Mexico. But when is the last time you heard someone nurturing their soul in Columbus, Ohio, or Helena, Montana, or Des Moines, Iowa, or even Raleigh, North Carolina, and Chadbourn, North Carolina? This may be why so many of us don't embark on a journey searching for God's continuing and sustaining presence. It is simply too much effort to go far away to somewhere else, because we often think of God in these amazing places. So we struggle to find God in the normal, everyday places of life. After Paul experienced Christ in his own life, he traveled the world helping others experience Christ in theirs. He would go to a new town, and he didn't tell them they had to go somewhere else to experience Christ. He helped them experience Christ in their own community, in their own lives. In Dave's reading of the scripture this morning, we see Paul and Silas going to the Jewish synagogue in Berea and telling them about Jesus. We hear they were open-minded, and they began to search the scriptures and found the truth of Christ and Christ's message in their lives. Then afterwards, Paul goes on to Athens to share the gospel message. And that is our text this morning in the book of Acts, chapter 17, verses 16 to 23. While Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was deeply troubled by all the idols he saw everywhere in the city. He went to the synagogue to reason with the Jews and the God-fearing Gentiles. And he spoke daily in the public square to all those who happened to be there. He also had a debate with the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers. When he told them about Jesus and his resurrection, they said, "What's this babbler trying to say with these strange things that he's picked up?" Others said, "It seems to be preaching about foreign gods." Then he took them to the high council of the city. "Come and tell us about this new teaching," they said. "You're saying some rather strange things, and we want to know what it's all about." Now it should be explained that all the Athenians as well as foreigners in Athens seemed to spread and spend time discussing these latest ideas. So Paul, standing before the council, addressed them as follows. "Men of Athens, I notice that you are very religious in every way. For I was walking among you and saw many shrines, and one of your altars had this inscription on it: to an unknown God. This God, whom you worship without knowing, is the one I am telling you about." Paul is continuing on his missionary journey, and he finds himself in Athens, where he is overwhelmed by all the idols that he sees. Paul first goes to the synagogue to speak and reason with the Jews and the God-fearing Gentiles, which is another way of saying about the Gentiles who also believe in Yahweh. But then he goes to the public square and he speaks and reasons with them as well. Paul is already engaging in two different cultures. The Jewish culture, where he's talking about Jesus being the Messiah and the fulfillment of the scriptures. Then he goes to the town square and he speaks to those within the Greek culture, the philosophers, ones who like to sit around and talk and reason all day long. Depending on which audience Paul is speaking to, he shares a different perspective about the gospel. And so we see how the gospel, this message about Jesus, is applicable to any culture, to any background. So as we think about sharing the gospel today, we need to think about the culture in which we are sharing the gospel. If we're going to share the gospel here in southeastern North Carolina, it's going to look different if we were in New York City or in Japan or wherever we may find ourselves. So just like we would need to study the culture of Japan to preach the gospel there, we need to be aware of the culture in which we live in, to share the gospel, to connect with people in us from day to day. We see in this text that the philosophers are confused about what Paul is saying, because he's telling them about Jesus and Jesus' resurrection. So they invite Paul to speak before the high council of the city, because the people like to sit around and debate. And Paul says this before the council in Athens: "Men of Athens, I notice that you are very religious in every way. For as I was walking along you, I saw these many shrines, and one of your altars had this inscription: to an unknown God. This God whom you worship without knowing is the one I'm telling you about today." Paul shares the message of Christ within the culture of the Athens. He doesn't go around and explain why all the other idols are wrong. But he sees this inscription of an unknown God that says, "There is my end. Let me introduce Christ to them and help them see how they've been worshiping Christ and just didn't know it. And let me help them understand what it means to fully worship Christ and to find new life through Christ's power and resurrection." Now we see at the end of this passage of Scripture in the 17th chapter how some people laugh at Paul. Paul is sharing his heart and telling them about Jesus. And some people simply laugh at him and don't understand what a word he is saying. But we see others making a decision to follow Christ, and they begin to believe in Jesus. In the synagogue, Paul shared one perspective about the gospel message. In the town square, he shared another perspective about the gospel message. Both are true. Both perspectives are the gospel message that he shared about Christ. But they're told in a different way, in a way that connects to a particular audience within a particular culture. And today we see how Christ is expressed in a variety of cultures all across the globe. And we see how the faith of Christ is expressed in the different cultures, even across the United States of America. You may have noticed something different about me this morning. Some of you have had comments about my hair. Some of you weren't even willing to share to me what you really thought about it. A couple of you asked why I didn't dye my beard as well. I don't remember if anyone really said I looked good or not. Now, it's one thing to have an opinion about how I look. Say, "Danny, you're welcome to dye your hair any color, but I don't know if the blonde is what's really going to work out for you." It's another thing to be frustrated that your pastor decided to dye his hair. Because if you're still talking about my hair color in another month, we are being distracted about what our work is as a church. Because you and I, we can serve in God's kingdom on earth regardless of our hair color. We can serve in God's kingdom on earth regardless of the clothes that we wear, the house we live in, the color of our skin, or the color of our hair. But you know, we have created a culture in church for years. And at times we create this line that you can't cross this line if you want to serve in God's kingdom. If you look differently, if you act differently, if you think differently, then you can't be about this church. And so we must recognize these moments where our church culture inhibits people from experiencing God in their lives. Let me give you an example of how this plays out. West Winds Community Church is a church up in Michigan. One article said this about that church: "The church has received regional and national attention for using innovative techniques during its weekly services." Scott Clow is a member of that church, and he shared his testimony in a video that I watched. And he talks about this moment in his life. It was about in 2009. He was struggling. He was going through a divorce. His children were getting tossed back and forth between the two homes. His life was falling apart. He had a friend named Corey. He said, "Hey, won't you come to my church with me?" It's been years since Scott was at church, but he decided to go to church one day. He goes into the lobby of the church, and he sees everybody drinking coffee, talking and hanging out among themselves. So he thought, well, this is interesting. So he gets a cup of coffee. But then it's about time for the service to start. And he sees everyone walking into the sanctuary with their cups of coffee. He's like, oh, wait a second. He's waiting for an usher in a suit to come and say, "Stop, you can't have coffee in here." But that's church, that didn't happen. He was allowed to take his cup of coffee into the sacred place of worship. And there he experienced God like he hasn't done in a while. He was uplifted and encouraged. And then he sees this man come out. Later he finds out it was one of the preachers or pastors at the church. This man is in a t-shirt and jeans. He has a full sleeve tattoo. He He thought, I've never seen a preacher with that many tattoos before and wear a t-shirt on a Sunday morning. And so he began to compare his experience of growing up in church to the experience that he's having a Sunday morning. He remembers growing up in church and always wondering if he measures up, comparing himself against everyone else in the room, wondering if he has what it needs to be a person following Jesus. But here at this church, he says, I don't have to worry about that. I know that I'm accepted because of what Christ has done. I know that I'm welcome in this place of worship, regardless of what clothes I wear and how many tattoos I have. He says, if the pastor can have a full sleeve of tattoos, surely I can be present at this church as well. So we can think about the culture of our church here and look at that church up there in Michigan and see it's a different culture. Now, I'm not saying that we need to go get a cappuccino machine and put out there in the vestibule. I'm not saying I'm going to get a bunch of tattoos. But we do need to think about our image in this community. What do people think of Chadbourn Baptist Church? And is it a hindrance for them coming to experience God in their life? And then feeling comfortable to come here and to simply worship God and to praise His name? Let me give you another story that could hit a little closer to home. A couple months ago, there was a family in our community who was going through a difficult time. So I went to go visit with them. As the pastor of a local church, I wanted to show them of our care and concern for them in their time of need. As a representation of God, I wanted to remind them that God is there with them in our difficult moments, giving them strength and building them up. As your pastor, I wanted to tell that family that Chadbourn Baptist Church loves them and cares for them, and we are able to help them in any way as we walk along this journey with them. Part of our conversation we had, he was talking about how he hasn't experienced this part before. He talked about being a good person. But then he said, I'll be honest with you, Pastor. From time to time, I do have a beard every once in a while. And I think it was a fascinating confession that he felt he needed to give me that day. And I wonder, because he chooses to have a beer from time to time, does that prohibit him from coming to this place of worship on Sunday morning? I hope not. Because I know there's people here in this church, because of their faith in Christ, choose not to drink alcohol or beer. I know others who have a deep faith in Christ choose to drink beer and alcohol. We have different opinions about that one issue in this church. I know there's some who choose to drink beer regardless of their faith, or some who don't, even though they think it's okay for others to do so in their faith. But I think about our culture as a church and our image as a church. Now, there's this man who's struggling because whatever's going on in his family's life. And he thought, I would love to come to church, but I don't know if they will accept me because I have a beer from time to time. Now, of course, people easily make up some excuses. They might say, well, I don't have enough nice clothes, I can't go to church. Even though we know that it doesn't matter what clothes you wear, you're fully welcome to come to church. So you can look around this room and see people in suits and other people in blue jeans. But we have this image that's been developing for decades. And we can recognize how time is changing in this world. Think about in 2018 when America elected the first black man to be president. And now we just elected another first, a person with no military background or government background to serve as our president. So we see from the political perspective, change is a theme that's continuing for several years. We recognize how Obama brought some change and how some voted for Trump to challenge that change. And so we are living in an ever-changing culture. So as a church, we must take the time to think about how are we going to share the gospel today in the culture in which we live. We must change along with it. We don't just jump on any bandwagon we can find. We don't get coffee outside and I'll get a bunch of tattoos to be cool like some church in Michigan, because North Carolina is different than Michigan. We must think, what are we doing today as a church to cross these barriers that people have put up, just like Paul did 2,000 years ago. He went to the Jewish synagogue and preached the gospel to them and helped them understand Jesus as Messiah and a fulfillment of the Scriptures. But when he found himself in a town square, he shared a completely different gospel message. The philosophers didn't care about the Jewish Scriptures. They cared about reason and thought. And so Paul connected that way, reminding them that Jesus is the unknown God that they've been worshiping. So as you go forth here these coming days, begin to look around and think about where you find yourself. What type of culture is in this community? And this is where I need your help. I've only lived here a couple of years. You know this place better than I do. So let's have a conversation about this culture in which we have as a church, this culture in which we live, and discover how Christ is in the middle of all of it. And then we're reminding us and ourselves that all people are truly welcome to come here and to worship God, despite your color of your hair, or the house you live in, or where you live here in Chapman. Paul crossed barriers to share Christ. And through Christ's presence, he was able to be an instrument to change the world. Let us be the same as well. Let us pray this morning. Gracious and loving God, just like Scott shared in that video, that he came to a church because someone invited him. And we too can look in our own lives and remember the people that simply invited us to church as well. As we gather here and worship you and praise your name, as we surrender our lives to you once again, may we go forth from here passionate about connecting to people around us. That we too invite them to come and to participate in your kingdom here on earth through the life of this local congregation. Be with us now as we sing another song, as we respond to you and continue to hear you speak to us. In Jesus' name, amen.